Let's talk about Shadowhunters, the TV show. Shadowhunters, the TV show, is terrible. I'll be the first to admit that the acting, the plot, and the writing has gotten better with each season. But really, that isn't saying much. I won't review season 1 and 2. I would have to rewatch the show for that. And I would rather stick a fork in an electric socket. I'm going to attempt to review the show on a weekly basis as it premieres. As of now, there are 3 episodes. There wasn't much to say about the premiere episode, Lost Souls. The world thinks Clary and Jonathan died in the blast that happened in the finale. When the episode starts, the New York Institute is in mourning. Why did anyone believe, for a second, that Clary was actually dead? Last season, Clary fell off a building, hit a car so hard she dented the roof, and broke several bones, and was fine in the next scene. But sure, an explosion killed her. You would think they would need a little more evidence to confirm that Clary was actually dead. Other than that, there really wasn't much to talk about. On to the next episode. Season 3, Episode 12, Original Sin. So, we start off with Jonathan transporting himself and Clary to Paris because he's truly the best brother ever. They prepare to go out, and there's this weird scene where Clary and Jonathan stare at each other while they're getting undressed. It's weird. Cut to Malik. Malik happens. Cut to Simon and Izzy in the sewers looking for Cain to find answers on how to remove the mark. Now here is where I should have seen the first warning signs that this episode was dipping into low qualityville. Izzy gets scared by a rat and they banter. Okay, that's fine and dandy. Then Simon hears Cain and zooms off to talk to him, leaving Izzy behind in the sewers by herself. Izzy then decides to disappear into the abyss. Seriously, Simon and Cain talk for a while and Izzy does not show up once during their conversation. They talk about both being daylighters. Cain shares his story of killing Abel. He gives Simon a magic rock and then tells him that to get the Mark of Cain off, he needs to see the Seelie Queen. Well, thanks, Cain. You were no help at all. Cain served no purpose to the story. Simon could have found the rock in a ditch, and the episode would have played out exactly the same. I haven't seen episode 3, but I would bet money that Cain doesn't appear again for the rest of the season. Anyway, Izzy reappears again in ghost form as she yells, "Where are you, Simon?" This spooks Cain, who has to be calmed by Simon. Simon tells Cain that it's only his friend, but Izzy doesn't show up in the flesh, so I guess she got lost again? Izzy and Cain never meet. Izzy being there was completely pointless and only for fan service. Cut to Jace and Luke. Through weather patterns and wind currents, they figure out the location of Jonathan's hideout. It's too bad he already left for Paris. So, they get there and find Clary's tracks in the snow. And this is where I call a timeout. They found Clary's tracks in the snow while it was still snowing around them, long after she and Jonathan left. Jonathan didn't leave any tracks, even though he both went after Clary and carried her back after she passed out from hypothermia. But Clary's tracks were the only ones still there, because that's how snow works. They find a piece of Clary's hair tangled in a tree branch because she ran into one hard enough to rip out several strands while trying to escape Jonathan and didn't notice, obviously. Cut back to Malik. Malik happens. Alec is the head of the Institute, and we never see him being the head of the Institute. He spends all his time at Magnus's or fighting off evil. Look, I'm not saying fighting off evil is a bad thing, but he's the head of the Institute, and we never see him running the Institute. Do you see the problem? Cut to Jonathan and Clary in Paris. Jonathan wants to get the family sword as a gift for Clary. Clary doesn't want to have anything to do with the Morgensterns, which, considering Valentine, is understandable. But Jonathan wants to get the sword anyway. Here, Clary sees a random Paris Shadowhunter walking down the street, bumps into him, and steals his stele. Jonathan wouldn't let her have his because they don't trust each other. There's a minor confrontation between random Shadowhunter number 56 and Jonathan, but nothing happens and they go on their way. Back at the New York Institute, Jace tells the round table, minus Simon and Izzy, that Clary is still alive because hair. I think it's Alec who says that a stele was reported stolen in Paris, and Jace is like, that must be Clary, because reasons. A random stele is stolen in a city nowhere near where you thought Clary was, and somehow that means it must be Clary. Okay. Cut to Simon and Izzy meeting the Seelie Queen. Cain was made even more pointless, because they didn't even need him to find the queen. They just did it on their own. The Seelie Queen goes on about how removing the mark could kill him. Simon says he wants to do the ritual to remove it anyway, and they do it. Simon puts the magic rock on a branding stick and there's a lot of effort to make it seem like Simon might die, when we all know Simon won't die. And he doesn't, of course, but Izzy ends up having to feed him blood or he really will die, and she does. That's pretty much it for them for the rest of the episode. Back to Paris. Jonathan really wants that sword. The shopkeeper, who's also a demon by the way, refuses to talk about it in the presence of a Shadowhunter, as in Clary. Clary offers to wait outside while the deal is made, and the shopkeeper tells Jonathan that he sold the sword already. He refuses to tell Jonathan who he sold it to. Jonathan doesn't like this answer and slits his throat. The demon dies. Outside, Clary tries to use her stolen stele to contact the New York Institute for help. At the same time, Paris Shadowhunters, coincidentally walking down the same street in her direction, sees Clary using his stele and puts a stop to that immediately. Clary tells him who she is, that she was kidnapped by her brother, and that she urgently needs to contact the New York Institute. What does random Paris man say upon learning that a fellow Shadowhunter is in trouble and needs help? If you guessed that, he tells her he's not listening and tries to drag her away to somewhere. You get a fresh bucket of shame. That's your prize. Here, I assumed he was going to bring Clary to the Paris Institute, but why? Over a stolen stele? Just take it back and leave. How did he know that that particular stele Clary was using was his anyway? Was his name engraved on it? Can he sense that it's his? What's the crime for stealing a stele anyway? A firm slap on the wrist? I'm glad that a fellow Shadowhunter tells you that they were kidnapped, and your response is, nah, you're lying. Either way, random Paris man twists Clary's arm hard enough to hurt, and through their bond, Jonathan feels it and knows Clary is in trouble. He makes quick work of random Paris man by snapping his neck, and pats himself on the back for saving his sister. But wait, Clary tells him that he shouldn't feel good about killing someone, and Jonathan is confused. He makes the good point that Clary enjoyed killing Valentine. Clary doesn't have to respond, because the New York Shadowhunters show up to save the day. How did they find him, you ask? I don't know. Is Paris only like a block wide? The odds of them finding Clary and Jonathan walking down a random street in Paris with no leads as to where they were or hard evidence that they were even there is astronomical. I've never been to Paris, but I think I can safely say that the city is not that small. I can't be sure though, don't quote me on it. You could make the point that Jonathan just neck-snapped a Shadowhunter, but also no, you can't. That just happened. Unless random Paris man's ghost called up the New York Institute and told them what happened before anyone else arrived on the scene. But because show's got a show, here we are. Alec is about to shoot Jonathan, who hides behind Clary for some reason. But Clary says Alec can't shoot him because they're bonded and killing him will kill her. Alec lowers his bow. It seems like a standstill until Clary stabs herself in the leg. At this point, Jonathan is like, ow, my leg, and runs away. Then Clary and Jace kiss and the episode ends. Now, here's the problem with this scene. Jonathan had no reason to run away. Alec and Jace couldn't attack him without hurting Clary. So, how was Jonathan at a disadvantage here? There were so many options available to him, and he chose to run away and then throw a tantrum about Clary getting away from him when he could have easily taken control of the situation. Here's an idea, Jonathan. I'll give it to you, free of charge. Threaten to kill yourself unless Clary comes with you, and if the Shadowhunters don't take you seriously, actually do it. At the end of the last episode, Clary stabs him through the neck, and he had plenty of time to heal himself while he couldn't breathe. Why not pull the same trick again? Show them you mean business. And then Clary doesn't have much of a choice, does she? Or here's a thought, don't run away. Jonathan had every advantage in that scene, but chose to run away because the writers told him to. There were so many scenes that felt like this, forced to happen in a certain way because the writers wanted them to, and not in any way that felt natural. And this is only the second episode, but that's going to be it for me for now, you guys. I'll see you next time with episode 3. Later.